All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Senior Concerns Seminar Series. I am Hannah Hoffman, the Care Manager here at Senior Concerns. If you are not familiar with our programs at Senior Concerns, I want to take a minute and share them with you. There's the Caregiver Resource Center that has support groups. We have senior advocates. We have an adult day program. We do the Meals on Wheels program for Thousand Oaks, Newbury Park, Westlake, Oak Park, and Agora. We have a geriatric in-home assessment program for a fee and pro bono legal and financial concerns appointments. Today's seminar is Healthy Eating for Older Adults. We are so fortunate today to have our presenter here with us. Bridget Harvey-Elliott, registered dietitian, is the Director of Nutrition Services here at Senior Concerns. In this role, she oversees the Meals on Wheels program for Thousand Oaks, Newbury Park, Oak Park, Agora, Westlake, and serves as the nutrition site manager for the adult day program. Bridget holds a bachelor's degree in biology from UCLA and earned her master's in nutrition from California State University, Northridge. She comes to Senior Concerns having worked for more than 30 years in the nutrition and dietetics arena. Her experiences include development and implementation of computer software for use in the areas of clinical nutrition and food service, management and management of 6,500 member professional organization for registered dietitians in California. She is also a community college nutrition instructor. We are so lucky to have Bridget here with us, and I will pass it on over to her.
Well, thank you, Hannah, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you all for attending this session today. The session is entitled Healthy Eating for Older Adults. However, healthy eating is important for everyone at every age. Healthy eating for older adults and everyone else has some recommendations for you. And some of these recommendations are eat a variety of fruits, vegetables, grains, protein foods, and dairy foods, and try to limit your sugar, saturated fat, and sodium or salt. Now, over time, there have been recommendation graphics to show how it is that you should be eating. I know some of you are probably familiar with the old food guide pyramid that had bread and grains at the bottom of the pyramid, indicating you should be eating more of those, as opposed to the sweets, sugars, and desserts up at the top of the pyramid, indicating that you should be eating less of those. The recommendations basically have been the same throughout the years to limit your sugars, saturated fat, sodium, and to eat a variety of fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy foods. The current graphic for how one should be eating is called the My Plate. And this graphically represents how your plate should look, or how the food should be broken down. If you look at the left side of the graphics, it says fruits and vegetables. Basically, this is telling you that half of all of what you eat on a regular basis should be fruits and vegetables. The other side shows you that grains take up a very large portion of that side, and protein is a lesser, as is dairy. Now, this is just a graphic that shows you what you're supposed to be eating. It doesn't really tell you how much you should be eating. There's also recommended servings for various ages. And what I have here on the screen are the servings for those people that are 60 years and older. And it's broken down by men and women. You'll generally notice that men have a little bit more to eat. Women tend to be a little bit smaller, and therefore it's a little less to eat. Now, fruits, it says women recommended 1.5 to 2 cups of fruit. Well, what does that mean when you have an apple or an orange? You can't chop it all up and cram it into a cup. There are other kinds of graphs that show you what it is that 1.5 to 2 cups equals. A standard portion size for a fruit, let's say, is a medium-sized orange or a medium-sized apple. How big is that? It's about the size of a baseball. So if you're familiar with the size of a baseball or a tennis ball, that's about the size of a medium fruit. Let's move on down now to vegetables. Women, 2 to 3 cups. Men, 2.5 to 3.5 cups. Again, it's in terms of cups. If you're eating celery sticks or if you're eating baby carrots, it's going to be a little bit different. than if you're eating a half a cup of cooked spinach. Grains. Grains are unprocessed grains and processed grains. Women, 3 to 3.5 slices. And this is in terms of slices of bread, because that's what most people think of when they think of grains. 3 to 3.5 slices for women per day, and 3 to 4.5 slices for men. And now down to the protein, women 5 to 6 ounces, men 5.5 ounces to 6 ounces. Again, what does that mean? About a 3-ounce portion of meat or protein is about the size of a deck of cards. So if you think about the size of a deck of cards, that's considered one serving of protein or meat. I know that for many of us, if we go to a restaurant and they give us meat the size of a deck of cards, we might be more than a little disappointed. But that's about the standard portion size. Now, as we age, our bodies change. I'm sure some of us have noticed that our hair starts to get thin and turn gray. We have wrinkles that appear on our faces. We have aches and pains. We can't get up as quickly as we used to. These are the things that we notice happening to our bodies as we change. However, there are a lot of internal changes taking place also as we age. And these internal changes will impact our nutritional needs and our nutritional status and our health as we grow older. The first thing on the list is muscle loss. Believe it or not, muscle loss begins at around the age of 30. So 30 years old and on, and if you're older than 30, you've probably experienced some muscle loss. The reason that that could become a problem is that when you lose muscle mass, you lose your strength, and it could result in falls, fractures, which could ultimately result in limited mobility. And we want to remain mobile, we want to remain strong, so we have to keep our muscles strong. And what we do with our muscles to keep them strong is, as we grow older, if we notice that there's muscle loss, or our physicians notice that there's muscle loss, we then will probably need to increase the protein that we take in on a daily basis. You may have less stomach acid. The problem with less stomach acid is you absorb less nutrients with less stomach acid. So you may be eating adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables, but somehow or another you're showing up a little bit deficient in those. It might be due to less stomach acid production, which occurs as we grow older. Another one of those issues that happens as we grow older is sometimes we have decreased ability to recognize hunger and thirst. Sometimes we just don't feel hungry, even though we know we need to eat. As we decrease our ability to recognize hunger and thirst, we tend to start to eat less, which could lead to unintentional weight loss, and we start to drink less, which could lead to unintentional dehydration. It's important to stay adequately hydrated as we grow older. Sometimes what happens is we lose our sense of smell and our sense of taste, or they start to decline. How many of you have gone into a restaurant and the food greeted you at the door and your gastric juices just started flowing? The smell of the food just made you hungry. And that's what your smelling sense is supposed to do when it comes to food. But as we grow older, our sense of smell tends to dull a bit. And when it does dull, it might be that we don't smell the food, and the food that we don't smell is not increasing our appetite. Same thing with our taste. Our sense of taste may be declining as we grow older, and it could be because of medication. It could be because of any number of things. If food doesn't taste good, we more than likely are not going to eat as much of it. Food should taste unapologetically delicious at all times. Remember that. Unapologetically delicious food. That's how it should taste, and that's how it should smell. Another item that some seniors encounter as we grow older is problems with chewing and swallowing. We could have ill-fitting dentures, which causes us to have pain when we chew, which causes us then to not want to eat as much food. We could have gum sensitivity. We could have some missing teeth. Those could be problems that will again lead to unintentional weight loss because we're not eating adequate amounts of food, which could also lead to decreased muscle mass, which could also lead to limited mobility. Dry mouth is also an issue that can result as we grow older. Somehow or another, our bodies just stop producing enough saliva. That can come from medications as well. One thing that we can do when we do have swallowing problems or due to dry mouth is we can try to sip liquids as we eat. Now, to help plan meals that meet our best nutritional needs as we grow older, there are several specific recommendations or diets out there that have been developed. When I say the word diet, I want you to think of an eating pattern. I'm not talking about a weight loss diet or a gluten-free diet. I'm talking about an eating pattern when I say diet. So now, some of you undoubtedly have heard of the MIND diet or the MIND eating pattern. What exactly is this MIND eating pattern? It was developed to help meet our nutritional needs as we grow older. The MIND diet, MIND stands for Mediterranean Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. This particular diet combines two different diet types that are out there, the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, and it creates a dietary pattern that focuses specifically on brain health. Focuses specifically on brain health. The Mediterranean diet is based on traditional foods consumed by people in countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea, being France, Spain, Greece, and Italy. Over the past many decades, researchers noticed the exceptionally healthy people found in this Mediterranean area, and they had significantly lower risks for developing chronic diseases compared to those of us in Western societies. Many of the studies conducted on the people in this area showed the benefits of the eating pattern called the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet promotes heart health, blood and sugar control, brain health, and weight loss. So what are some of these Mediterranean diet foods? They're rich in flavors. They have a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, heart healthy fats, and equal parts delicious and nutritious. The other diet that is combined to make the MIND diet is called the DASH diet. And this is another one that's been around for a very long time. Research has shown that the diet that decreases salt intake, dietary approach to stop hypertension, helps decrease hypertension and other types of heart disease. Now you say, well, if I can't put salt on my food, how am I to make my food taste unapologetically delicious? Well, you can increase the use of herbs and spices. I have a chart that we can send out to you after this webinar is over. And it's a chart, it was developed by one of our Pepperdine interns, and it's a herb and spice chart. And it actually shows which foods go with which herbs and which spices. So you don't have to increase your salt intake to increase the lovely herbal flavors of food. Now, the health benefits of the MIND diet are those same benefits that come with the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, plus a few more. The primary goal of this MIND diet is to reduce cognitive decline and diminishing brain activity. One of the benefits is with this diet, you may reduce the plaque buildup and the cell damage in the brain. Plaque buildup can cause cell damage in the brain, which diminishes our abilities to think clearly. This diet lowers blood pressure. This diet reduces risks for heart disease and stroke, and it also aids in diabetes management. And it may also help control arthritis. Now, on every eating pattern, every eating plan, every eating diet, there are foods that you have to limit or avoid. And generally those foods that you have to limit or avoid, just like at the top of that food guide pyramid, were the salts, the sugars, the desserts, the sweets, and the good flavored fats. The same thing goes with the MIND diet. There are 5 foods to limit or avoid. And you look at them and you go, oh, those are the ones I like. Well, if you look, it says to limit or avoid. Limit them if you can and avoid them if you can. Let's start with butter and margarine. Try to eat less than 1 tablespoon of butter or margarine daily. Now, if you don't know what 1 tablespoon equals, you can think about it as like the first joint of your thumb. That's about a tablespoon. So if you can eat less than that in butter or margarine a day, you're doing great. Instead, what the Mind Diet recommends is try using olive oil. It's one of the healthy oils that the people in the Mediterranean use regularly. Cheese. The Mind Diet recommends eating cheese less than once per week. So if you like those cheese and meat sandwiches every day, you might want to cut down on that cheese and just have the meat sandwich. Red meat. Aim for not more than 3 servings of red meat per week. Now, red meat is beef, lamb, pork, and the products made from these meats, not just those chunks of meat, but all the products made from the sausages, the sliced meats, the salamis, etc. Try to limit or avoid fried and fast food. Fried food, if you think about it, that's adding fat like butter and margarine. Fast food, fried food is highly discouraged, especially if it's from fast food restaurants. The reason that, especially from fast food restaurants, is that it tends to run with salt. So you want to limit fried and fast foods to less than once per week. Now, this one I think is going to make you a little bit happy. Pastries and sweets. This includes snack foods and desserts like ice creams, cookies, brownies, snacks, cake, donuts, cakes, and candies, and more. Try to limit these to no more than 4 times a week. So you say, well, I've given up cheese and meat and fried food and butter and margarine, so I guess I can still have pastries every now and again. No more than 4 times per week. Now let's look at all of the fruits, vegetables, and all the foods to include on the Mind Diet. There are many. The Mind Diet recommends eating more green leafy vegetables or dark green leafy vegetables. This is 6 or more servings per week, which equals out to about 1 serving per day. Now, what's considered a serving size? A half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw. Some examples of dark green leafy vegetables are spinach, kale, raw greens, and we'll get to those, and cooked greens. But exactly what are some of these greens, these leafy greens? If you think about the raw leafy greens, think about salad greens. Over here, we have a picture of romaine lettuce, and at the bottom, it's a picture of kale. There's all different kinds of kale. This is just one of the many kinds of kale. Romaine lettuce is considered a dark green leafy vegetable. Spinach, kale, arugula, curly endive. If you think about that produce section in your grocery store, you can walk there and you can just look and see all of the dark green leafy vegetables that are there. You can eat them raw as a salad, and some of them really require cooking. But the ones listed here are some of those that you can eat raw and make a salad. Move over from iceberg lettuce and choose romaine, choose spinach, kale, arugula, or curly endive. Now, some of the dark green leafy vegetables that are cooked, those will include spinach, which you can eat raw also, kale, which you can eat raw also, mustard greens, turnip greens, collard greens, and Swiss chard. Those you tend to want to cook those. So if you're going to cook your vegetables, it's going to end up being a half a cup cooked, or if you're going to eat these dark green leafy vegetables raw, it is 1 whole cup raw. Now, the Mind Diet likes to mention to include more of those food items that have been shown to benefit the brain, shown to leave your body with a healthier brain. That's not to say that you can't eat all different kinds of leafy greens. It's just that the Mind Diet would like for you to include the dark green leafy vegetables at least 1 a day. And you can also include all other kinds of vegetables up to the amount that you are recommended to eat. There are all the other kinds of vegetables, 1 or more servings a day, half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw. You have green beans, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, a whole host of other vegetables that you can include. But what the Mind Diet is asking is that you get at least 1 serving a day of the dark green leafy vegetables, because those are the ones that have been found to be most beneficial to the brain. The Mind Diet also recommends that you eat more nuts, 5 or more servings per week. Well, what's a serving? A serving is about an ounce or about a quarter of a cup. If you think about almonds, about 20 almonds is what is considered one serving. And if you correlate that to other nuts, you can see about how much that is. It's about one whole handful. That's considered one serving. 5 or more servings per week, that's less than 1 a day. Or you can have 2 tablespoons of nut butter being like almond butter or cashew butter. Now, some of the common kinds of nuts, again, walnuts, almonds, pecans, hazelnuts, and cashews. Walnuts and almonds have been touted as being those most beneficial for heart health and brain health. Nuts are very good to include. Sometimes people don't want to eat nuts because they say they're very high in fat, but it is a good kind of fat that is contained in nuts. And if you limit it to 1 ounce serving several times a week, very beneficial for you. Mind Diet also wants you to eat more whole grains. Whenever I say whole grains, a lot of people don't know what I mean by a whole grain. You can think of it as an unprocessed grain. You could think of it as the grain as it is grown and harvested, where they don't do anything to it. I'll get to that in just a minute. For whole grains, you want 3 or more servings per day. Now, if you think about it, a whole grain can be a slice of bread, or it can be whole wheat pasta. It can be a half a cup of brown rice. It could be a half a cup of oatmeal for breakfast or anytime during the day, or 100% whole wheat. Now, whenever the last recommendations came out from the federal government, it said have some number of servings of grains per day and make half of your grains whole. The Mind Diet is recommending that you have 3 or more servings per day of whole grains. So basically, you want to try to have whole grains instead of the processed grains. So what do I mean by a whole grain? If you look at the picture where it says whole grain, there are 3 parts to grains. There's the bran, which is the outer layer, and that is where you have fiber. I know we've heard a lot about fiber. Fiber is very important to help keep our intestinal tract healthy. Then if you look at the bottom, it's the germ layer. That's the layer that contains healthy fats, vitamin B vitamins, vitamin E, and other nutrients in it. This is where the processing takes place. The germ layer and the bran layer are usually processed out, and what you're left with is the starchy carbohydrate middle layer, and it does contain some proteins and vitamins. But on the Mind Diet, we like for you to eat the whole grain, which has the fiber, and it has the other healthy fats and other nutrients in the germ layer. You might ask, well, why do they get rid of those? Well, in processing, if you leave the fat in it, it will rot faster. You take out the germ, you can have that grain last for a whole lot longer than you have with the fat layer in it. The bran layer tends to make things a little tougher, so they remove that, and they end up with a nice, clean endosperm or a starchy layer. But we want to have the whole grain with the bran and the germ layer. Some of the examples of whole grains are listed on the left. We have whole wheat, we have oats. Generally, if you eat oatmeal, you're getting the whole grain because you don't tend to find oats without all of it in there. Whole grain rye, some people like to make rye bread. Brown rice. Brown rice has the bran and the germ layer. Barley. Quinoa. Quinoa is one of the newer grains. It's been around, it's an ancient grain. It's been around, but it's just gained popularity in recent years. And a lot of people kind of don't know what to do with it, don't know what it is, but it is a whole grain if you want to give it a try. Corn. I've had questions, well, isn't corn a vegetable? Well, corn on the cob that you eat is in fact a vegetable, but the actual kernel itself is a grain, and it is a whole grain, and it can be popped into popcorn. So popcorn is a whole grain. Popcorn is very healthy for us. It has the bran layer, it's got the germ layer. The only thing is, sometimes we like to dress up our popcorn with some of that lovely salt and some of that lovely butter. We recommend on the Mind Diet that you have that popcorn without the butter and without the sodium. whole grain versus processed grain. Whole grains are what you want to include on the MIND diet because that is what's going to add to healthy brains. The MIND diet also likes you to eat more beans and peas. Now, why beans and peas? Beans and peas provide protein, and they also provide carbohydrate. So beans and peas can be used as a substitute for red meat. 4 or more servings per week and a half a cup of cooked beans. This is generally the dried beans that you find in soup. Dried beans and peas, green, black-eyed peas. There can be a split pea soup. You can have red kidney beans. You can have soup with all different kinds of beans in it, great northern beans, white beans, navy beans, pea beans. Those are the dried beans and peas. And chickpeas, which are also called garbanzo beans, they're also part of the legume family. There's lentils, high in protein, soybeans, and I've listed there hummus. Hummus is basically garbanzo beans or chickpeas, and tofu. Tofu is soybeans. So there's all different kinds of beans and peas that satisfy the protein requirement or your protein recommendation, and they can be found in many, many, many dishes that we like to prepare and eat. Poultry, the MIND diet recommends 2 or more servings a week of poultry, and it's chicken or turkey. And with the chicken, it says skinless. Generally skinless, why? Because with chicken, the fat tends to adhere to the skin. If you remove the skin, then you remove the bulk of the fat from the chicken. 3 to 5 ounces per serving, 2 or more servings per week. It's a protein food, but again, beans and peas or legumes also satisfy that protein requirement. Eat more fish. Now, Mediterranean diet and other diets recommend at least 2 servings of fish per week. The MIND diet recommends 1 or more. 1 or more because there is some benefit to having 1 or more. Healthy mind benefit to having 1 or more. Again, remember the MIND diet, these recommendations are for those items that have been found to specifically benefit the brain on the MIND diet. Tuna, salmon, trout, swordfish, cod, any and all of those are great fish to eat. They have the omega-3 fatty acids, and they should not be fried, even though we might want them to. 3 to 5 ounces considered a serving, so 1 or more servings per week. And you see tuna over there. Yes, that tuna in the can does just as well as fresh fish, as long as you have the tuna in the can with water and not with oil. Now, on the MIND diet recommends olive oil as your main cooking oil and as your main salad oil. Use olive oil as your main cooking oil. You can use olive oil. They even now have olive oil cakes. Some people like making cakes and brownies with olive oil. Healthier than with butter, 2 tablespoons per day. But if you're going to make a cake with olive oil, you really need to make sure you're not going overboard with the pastry and sugars included. Now fruits. Let's move on to fruits. Berries have been shown to correlate with improved brain function. Berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, a half a cup. The MIND diet recommends eating berries at least twice per week, 2 times per week. That's all that you really need. However, the MIND diet has found that blueberries are one of the most potent foods in terms of protecting the brain. And strawberries have also performed well in past studies on the effect of food on cognitive function. So blueberries are what it is that if you had a choice, you grab some blueberries. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. Now, again, blueberries have been shown to improve brain function. That does not mean that you just eliminate all other fruits. Other fruits that come into play, 1 cup or 1 medium, remember 1 medium apple One medium orange is the size of a baseball or a tennis ball. All other fruits have to be included to round out your recommendations for fruits. Now, just let me recap briefly. The recommended numbers of servings for people 60 years of age and older are fruit recommendations for women, 1.5 to 2 cups, men, 2 cups. If you had a half a cup of berries one day, you could have an orange, you could have an apple, you could have some banana, you could have all different kinds of fruits that will help you meet your fruit recommendations. When it comes to vegetables, women 2 to 3 cups a day, men 2.5 to 3.5 cups. You can include those green leafy vegetables as 1 serving every day, and then add in all the other vegetables that you're going to need to round out your 2 to 3 cups for women, or 2.5 to 3.5 cups for men. The grain products, 3 to 3.5 slices. Remember, our whole grains, it wants 3 servings, which is 1 slice or 1/2 cup cooked. If you have that oatmeal in the morning, and then you have some toast with that oatmeal, that's 2 servings right there. And you have a sandwich later in the day, those are your 3 servings, but there's also room for other grain products. Whole wheat bread, whole rye bread is a whole grain also. Protein. We mentioned protein, turkey and chicken. Those are the 2 recommended by the Mind Diet. But as far as protein goes, we also recommend legumes, beans and peas, dried beans, dried peas, soybeans, lentils, all of those qualify as protein foods, good tasting protein foods that can take the place of our want and our desire for red meat. Now, before we go to questions, I have one other item. Healthy eating for older adults not only encompasses the foods that we eat, like those on the Mind Diet, plus all the others necessary to fill out our eating patterns. There are some other recommendations that come with the Mind Diet and eating for older adults. Make eating a social event. Enjoy meals with friends or family members as often as possible. Take advantage of technology to enjoy meals virtually with loved ones in other cities or states. We tend to eat happily when we're eating with others. Drink plenty of liquids. Now, the Mind Diet doesn't specifically mention liquids. It used to mention red wine, but they kind of let that one fall by the wayside. Drink plenty of liquids. You may not always feel thirsty, but your body needs fluids. And that's why it's important to drink beverages throughout the day. What's our primary beverage that we should be drinking all the time? I can't hear you. Water, that is correct. If you don't really like the taste of water, you might want to add some fruits or vegetables to add just a little flavor to your water. And you could enjoy coffee and tea as well. Those are found to have beneficial effects on some of our issues. Now, the problem with coffee and tea, what do we generally put in our coffee and tea? Little of this, little of that, little of the other. Black coffee and plain tea are the best ways for us to go. Make the most of your food choices. Older adults need plenty of nutrients, which means you need plenty of different kinds of food. And with that, I'm going to conclude and turn it back over to Hannah for questions. Thank you so much for your time today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a spice chart that will come out with you when you get the link from Hannah, and it lists the food items and herbs and spices that can be used with those food items to enhance the flavor and decrease the amount of salt that some of us tend to want to put on our food. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. That was wonderful. I have a lot of questions here. Let me start. I will let you know that this presentation will be downloaded onto the Senior Concerns website. I will also send out any handouts that Bridget might have. I'll send them to anybody who was actually signed up for the webinar or who's in the webinar right now. You'll be getting an email with me from me within the next 2 days. I'm going to stop sharing your screen, Bridget, and we can,
Okay.
there we go. All right, so I have questions, and anybody, if your hand is raised, if you could type the question into the chat box. So at the bottom, if you move your mouse around, there's going to be something that says Q&A. I want you to click on the Q&A, and then you can type your question in there. All right, so let's get started. All right. I'm going to ask you to start your video. Bridget, are roasted or raw nuts recommended?
Are roasted or what?
Or roasted or raw nuts?
Either way, raw nuts stores are lessening carrying those. They're starting to carry pasteurized nuts as opposed to raw nuts. I'm not certain what would have brought about that change now, but roasted raw is fine as long as it's not roasted with salt.
All right. And then, is there a nutritional difference between quick oats and traditional oats? And then what about steel oats?
Okay, steel oats take a long time to cook. Traditional and quick oats. Quick oats, you're going to have to look at the label. Sometimes they've added salt to quick oats because they feel you're not going to have enough time to adequately season them. So look at your labels for quick oats. Steel oats is just a different kind of oat. It's more like a round seed grain. Perfectly healthy. Regular oats, perfectly healthy. But with your quick oats, be sure to look at the label to see if they've added salt.
Good idea. Thank you. And then you did not include sardines in the listing of desirable fish. Is this an oversight, or should we avoid sardines?
No, you shouldn't avoid sardines. You can go ahead and eat sardines, but generally sardines come in oil, lots of oil that people tend not to drain. I'm a sardine. I like sardines myself. Anyway, I can look that up. It was not necessarily included in the Mind diet. The lists that were provided were those fish that were found to have beneficial effects for your brain on the Mind diet. It does not mean that they are not good for you. It's just that they have not found that sardines performed a specific benefit.
All right. Thank you. And then what if you are a vegetarian? I'm going to assume this is related to protein.
Beans and legumes. Beans and legumes are vegetarian. There's plenty of vegetables, fruits that have no animal product at all. If you just eliminated the chicken and the turkey, everything else there was pretty much vegetarian.
All right. Thank you.
Well, it depends on if you eat fish. If you don't eat fish, you can eliminate the fish too. If you eliminate the fish, you're going to need to have another source of the omega-3 fatty acids, which could be nuts and seeds.
All right. And then, does whey protein qualify for the Mind diet?
Not as far as I know. It's derived from dairy. I can, let me look that one up. It wasn't on any list that I've looked at.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I will get back to Hannah with that answer.
All right.
I'm assuming you're talking about a powdered whey protein that you might add to liquids or
I'm going to assume so as well. Yeah. So that attendee is anonymous. If you would like to reach out to me via email, I'd be happy to show you what Bridget finds. And then, can you suggest a recipe book or website which incorporates Mind diet ingredients?
You could probably just Google Mind diet or even Mediterranean diet. What I'll do is I'll get some links together and then I can have Hannah send that out when she sends out your information.
Great. Thank you. And then, are frozen peas okay, or do we need to buy a fresh?
No, frozen. Frozen vegetables are preferable for a lot of people because they will last a whole lot longer. If you buy fresh peas, they have not been frozen, that have not been frozen, they will not last as long as the frozen ones in your freezer.
All right. And then, what potatoes go into the diet?
Okay, on the Mind diet, again, they specifically had those vegetables that they had listed. There are no particular potatoes on the Mind diet, but potatoes are a vegetable. You have to be cognizant of the fact that they are a starchy vegetable and that you wouldn't want to have potatoes all the time because that would be a lot of carbohydrate calories. Potatoes are, you can have potatoes as part of your regular vegetable eating, just as long as you don't fry your potatoes or bake a lovely potato and then douse it in butter.
All right. Are green leaf lettuce and red leaf lettuce considered greens?
They're all greens. Red leaf lettuce will have a little more of vitamin A than a green leafy vegetable and are perfectly good to be included on anybody's eating plan. The ones that they recommended, however, were those that were found to help the brain stay healthy. But you can definitely include all the other leafy greens are out there, even iceberg lettuce, because iceberg lettuce is 97% water, and you don't have to drink water to get water if you eat a whole lot of iceberg lettuce.
Good trick. Someone said, I came late. She's just wondering, can you eat non-fat yogurt or 1% cheese? Does that make a difference?
You can eat those anytime you want, but specifically as part of the Mind diet, remember again, those are just the foods that they found to have a positive impact on the brain. You can eat all of those anytime. It's just that the Mind diet, they're not specifically listed, but they would be listed under any other healthy category for dairy or meats.
All right. And then what about sugar substitutes?
That's another ball game. That's another whole hour conversation. Definitely for diabetics, sugar substitutes are better than sugar because you don't want to have that rush of glucose. For anyone else, it's a matter of preference. You can Google sugar substitutes and you'll find that some folks say they're good to eat, others say don't eat them. It's just a matter of personal preference.
All right. What is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
A registered dietitian is one that has a minimum of a bachelor's degree, has completed at least a 1 year, 6 month to 1 year internship, has passed a national examination, and has to maintain their registered dietitian status via continuing education. A nutritionist, there really isn't a good definition for a nutritionist. A lot of dietitians will call themselves nutritionists, but you don't have to have anything in particular to become a nutritionist. That's why it's good to look for registered dietitian nutritionist, RDN. That means you've got the qualified person and you know what their credentials are and you know what they had to do to get there. Nutritionists, some of them can be very, very good, but I personally don't know exactly what that means for some.
All right. Thank you. And then is oatmeal considered protein?
Oatmeal is a grain.
Okay. Oatmeal is a grain. All right. We answered the sugar substitute. How does this differ from the Mediterranean diet? My UCLA cardiologist recommended the Mediterranean diet.
The Mediterranean diet is specifically heart healthy and everything else healthy. The Mind diet is specifically related to keeping the brain healthy. And what your cardiologist knows, and others do too, anything that keeps the heart healthy is also going to help keep the brain healthy. But remember, the Mind diet, those are foods specific that have been shown through research to keep the brain healthy. Mediterranean diet is a great diet.
All right. And then this is another question about milk products in general. Whole milk, low fat, skim milk, yogurt. Are these all? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. Milk is a matter of preference. Whole milk, a lot of people don't like it because it does have higher amounts of fat. But if you are on the slim side and you can't keep your weight up, whole milk would be perfectly fine. Whole milk is definitely recommended for the youngest of children because they need all the calories, need all the fat for their ever-growing bodies and brains. For adults, low-fat milk, skim milk if you like it. Yogurts are fine, even whole milk yogurts. If you do any cooking, you probably wouldn't want to use any low-fat yogurts. The fat in the yogurt makes a difference in whatever it is that you happen to be making. So dairy is fine.
All right. And then our last question is, what about pizza?
Okay, let's break down pizza. Pizza is bread. Is it whole grain bread? Is it whole wheat pizza dough? I don't know. You have the vegetable, which is tomatoes, which is fine. You have cheese. Well, you put a little bit of cheese on there. And for your other vegetables, you can include, like people do, olives, which are great, onions, bell peppers, whatever else you want on there. But where you get your pizza issue is how much meat, red meat, are you going to put on that pizza? If you don't put any red meat on it and use all your vegetables, you then can have some cheese.
And then another question, how is peanut butter?
Peanut butter, okay, I thought I was going to mention peanut butter. Most people think peanuts are nuts. Peanuts are actually a legume, beans and peas. So peanut butter is great because it provides protein, and that would be the 2 tablespoons as 1 serving of protein from your peanut butter. But technically, it's not a nut. It's a legume. Peanut butter is great. That's what I eat most mornings.
Me too. All right, so it looks like that is, oh, no, one more. Are olives good, bad? I know you just mentioned them on the about the pizza. Are high in sodium coming from a can, but olives are good for us. Your input, please.
Olives are good. It depends on if you're getting them out of the jar or the can. You can't devour, the whole 8-ounce can because that would be a little bit too much sodium. Olives, remember, olive oil comes from olives, so olives are also considered part of the Mediterranean diet. I can look up for you the sodium content of olives, and that will help you determine, how many olives you might want to eat. There's all kinds, the olives, there's just so many different kinds of olives. Anyway, olives, because olive oil comes from olives, and olive oil is considered part of the Mediterranean diet. Olives too would be included, but you can't just sit and eat pounds and pounds of olives. So I'll look up the sodium content for olives.
So in moderation.
Absolutely. But yeah, you can say in moderation. And then somebody will always say, well, what does that mean? Eat too much. Don't eat too much.
All right, I think that's it. So what we will do is, if you have any other questions, you can email them to me or to Bridget, and we will answer them as they come in. Oh, another one, is sauerkraut good for antibiotics?
For antibiotics,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sauerkraut is good for your gut because it's a fermented food. Sauerkraut, let me write that down. Sauerkraut and antibiotics. I know sometimes with antibiotics, what they do is if you've gone through a round of antibiotic treatment, they will have you eat yogurt to help replenish some of the bacteria that has been removed by the antibiotics. But I'm not sure specifically about sauerkraut. So I will look that up. Do you have a name for that one, Hannah?
Sauerkraut? Oh, yes, I do. I have her name.
Okay, so
and
then
somebody said they probably meant probiotics, like you said. But we'll look into it.
Oh, I'll look into it.
Yeah, I do have her name.
Okay, good. And then I'll include an answer for that.
I got a thank you for your straightforward presentation. It was very useful.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you all for taking your time out to give a listen.
I can. So my email is it's H Hoffman. So it's HHOFFMAN @seniorconcerns.org. And then Bridget.
My email address is B for Bridget, last name Elliott, ELLIOTT, two L's, two T's, at seniorconcerns.org.
All right. Thank you so much. And they said very informative, concise, and helpful. They appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I will thank you so much for joining us today. Please go to our website to sign up for future seminars. Our next one will be presented on Thursday, February 23rd. It is about understanding the Ventura County Home Share Housing Program. Also, we do have a support group coming up, a 4-week support group for people who are worried about early memory loss. So you can sign up on our website if you're interested. That will be taking place in February. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you, Bridget.
Thank you, and bye-bye.